This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. What keeps the prosecutors like Jack Smith up at night is trying to prove criminal mind or criminal intent, what we call mens rea by Donald Trump. Specifically, having witnesses testify, because Donald Trump certainly won't do it, that he knew that he lost the election to Joe Biden, and then everything followed from that, of course, is a fraud and willful intent, criminal intent to commit the crimes, which is the key element that the prosecutors has the burden of proving at all of the trials, whether state or federal. Cassidy Hutchinson, a longtime assistant to Mark Meadows, who has a new memoir out called Enough, probably has supplied Jack Smith with enough new evidence that we're just learning about to tie Donald Trump directly to knowledge that he knew he lost the election, which is what Jack Smith, Fani Willis, and others have to do. What am I talking about? Well, we know that Cassidy Hutchinson, brave, witness to history, witness for the prosecution, testified to the Jan 6 committee after she had sort of a change of heart, after Trump's paid-for lawyer tried to encourage her to protect the president, then Donald Trump, and not remember certain things. She then spoke to, apparently, Alyssa Farah, communications director for Donald Trump, fed her all the knowledge that Cassidy Hutchinson had to allow Liz Cheney to ask certain questions sort of as a follow-up, as a softball to Cassidy Hutchinson. That because Cassidy Hutchinson couldn't cooperate directly with the committee because of her lawyer, Trump bought and paid for, she did it through Alyssa Farah. That's how we learned about Cassidy Hutchinson, and that's how we suddenly got all of this font of information to come out. We also know now that she is, Cassidy Hutchinson is cooperating fully with both Jack Smith, special counsel, feds, and Fani Willis, Fulton County District Attorney, state prosecutor, fully. It's one of the reasons she's not mentioned at all, Cassidy Hutchinson, in any of the indictments, and won't be, because she's a cooperating witness. And in the latest anecdotes from her book, which are obviously are already in the hands of the prosecutors and more, right? We're just getting the shadows on the cave from Cassidy Hutchinson's memoir. We know she's already given full cooperation to the prosecutors. She says that there are several people in it that tie Donald Trump to knowledge that he lost the election. In other words, that Donald Trump knew he lost the election. She says that John Ratcliffe, former part of the national security apparatus, and who's already testified to both Fani Willis's grand jury or special purpose grand jury and for Jack Smith, that he will be able to testify that in his interaction with the president, then Trump, it was obvious to him that Trump had acknowledged that he lost. John Ratcliffe is also going to be a key witness because he was called by Donald Trump as part of another group, Ken Cuccinelli, acting head of the Homeland Security, about on December 18th or so, prior to him leaving office, about whether Trump was going to invoke martial law or the Insurrection Act in order to seize voting machines. So John Ratcliffe's got a lot to say when he's finally brought into a courtroom, and he's already cooperated with prosecutors. And now Cassidy Hutchinson says that Ratcliffe knows from his interaction with Trump that Trump acknowledged that he lost. Key fact here that the prosecutors desperately need to complete their puzzle to present to the jury. Mark Meadows, she will testify, also confirmed that he heard Trump say, "I lost the election." She's going to testify, because it's in her book, that Mark Meadows, in his interaction with Donald Trump said, "We can't lose. Do something. We can't let anyone know that we've lost." That's actually a slightly different nuance. Trump telling Meadows, we can't let anyone know that we've lost. That sentence means that Trump recognized that he lost, and he wants Meadows to do something about it. So that's another person in the chain connecting Donald Trump to criminal knowledge. He'll also say that she'll also testify at the appropriate time that Speaker McCarthy, who has enough problems right now trying to remain speaker and keep the MAGA Republicans from shutting down the government, that in his conversations with Donald Trump, he also indicated to her that Trump knew that he lost the election. So we've got Meadows, McCarthy, John Ratcliffe, Cassidy Hutchinson, of course, and the way she talks about Pat Cipollone, the White House counsel, I wouldn't be surprised if she's told the feds and the state prosecutors that he also heard or overheard Donald Trump about that issue. Now, one of her friends that I already spoke about, Alyssa Farah, is one of the people who testified already that she overheard Donald Trump say in the dining room next to the Oval Office, "Can you believe I lost to this guy after the days after the election?" So there is a series of links in this chain, right, that are going to be eventually connected to a ball connected to Donald Trump's ankle in prison, because they're all going to establish, and the jury is going to hear by a weight of evidence when all of these people come in one at a time in riveting testimony led by Cassidy Hutchinson. And maybe Mark Meadows, after he flips, having heard what Cassidy Hutchinson has already said about him. The series of people, then the jury is going to have to conclude in Washington, D.C. or in Atlanta that no reasonable person would be able to maintain in their head the position that they had actually won the election and that he had lost it by fraud. So that is the important, as we're continuing to dive in and read the memoir of Cassidy Hutchinson to get more of enough, pardon the pun, we'll keep bringing it to you on hot takes like this one. I just did one earlier about Cassidy Hutchinson dumping on Mark Meadows and why Mark Meadows should stop worrying about, which courthouse he's going to get convicted in, start worrying more about witnesses like Cassidy Hutchinson and thinking about cooperating with the government. But here, the takeaway is Cassidy Hutchinson has already, obviously, because it's already in her book, provided the feds and the other prosecutors with detailed knowledge and information about people like National Security Head John Ratcliffe, Speaker McCarthy, Mark Meadows, Pat Cipollone, and others, and how they all overheard Donald Trump admit and concede that he lost. And therefore, everything he did after that was really false. And his decision to believe Team Crazy, Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Ken Chesborough, John Eastman, most of which are either now disbarred, no longer lawyers, or soon to be disbarred lawyers, was not reasonable, right? And that constitutes what we call in the law willful blindness, burying your head in the sand so that you don't acknowledge facts that are true is as equally bad as knowing facts that are true, and you can be convicted on that basis as well. I'll continue to unpack what we learn about Cassidy Hutchinson, knowing that whatever's in her memoir has already been provided to the government and that they've probably already signed off on what she is now testifying to in the chapters of her book, and I'm sure she has given them a lot more. This is only the tip of the iceberg. As we learn about it, I'll do it here at that valuable real estate corner of law and politics, only on the MeidasTouch Network. Free subscribe to their YouTube channel. Help them get to 2 million. Make them more powerful and larger so that your voice resonates. If you like what I'm doing, you can follow me on all things social media at MS Popok. And I co-anchor and co-founded the leading podcast on law and politics. We call it Legal AF. Yep, it's what you think. It's on Wednesdays and Saturdays, also exclusively on the MeidasTouch Network. Until my next hot take, until my next episode of Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Hey, Meidas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.